A curious event has been observed. A user wakes up. Before their eyes have fully adjusted to the light, before they've spoken a single word, their hand is already moving toward the phone. Not because they decided to, not because they planned to, because the hand moved before they were fully conscious of making any decision at all. 5 minutes later, the investigation records the following: 3 apps checked, 4 videos watched, 2 strangers compared against, 1 growing sense of unease about nothing specific, and no memory of why the device was picked up in the first place. This event is not unusual. It happens millions of times every morning, in bedrooms across the world, to people who know better. The question is not whether it happens. The question is how. The average human checks their device over 90 times a day, once every 10 minutes of waking life. Many of these checks aren't even remembered. Some happen while the user is actively trying to stop. At first glance, this looks like a failure of self-control. Investigation suggests otherwise. The system may be functioning exactly as designed. Most explanations point to one word here: dopamine. The assumption: the brain seeks pleasure, the phone delivers it, the behavior continues. Investigation indicates this explanation is missing something critical, something that changes everything about why this behavior continues, even when the user is fully aware it's happening. That finding is coming. First, the investigation needs to go further back, long before smartphones, long before algorithms, long before the internet existed at all. For most of human history, information was scarce. A new piece of information could mean survival, where food was located, who could be trusted, whether danger was nearby. Humans who paid attention to novelty survived longer than those who ignored it. Over hundreds of thousands of years, the brain built a directive. Something new? Pay attention. Something unexpected? Pay attention. Something emotionally charged? Pay attention immediately. This was less a choice, more architecture. That system worked remarkably well for thousands of years. Then humans built machines capable of delivering endless novelty. Every swipe presents a possibility. Maybe something interesting. Maybe nothing. Maybe a message or a joke that produces 20 seconds of laughter and disappears from memory entirely. The brain cannot predict which outcome is coming, and that uncertainty matters more than most people realize, because uncertainty is surprisingly powerful. A psychologist named Frederick Skinner demonstrated exactly how powerful, using pigeons. Give a pigeon a lever that dispenses food every single time it's pressed, and the pigeon eventually stops pressing once it isn't hungry. Give it a lever that dispenses food unpredictably, and it presses almost continuously. The uncertainty wasn't a flaw in the reward system. The uncertainty was the mechanism. Casinos understood this. So did game designers. And eventually, so did the people building the platforms that now live in every pocket on the planet. Sean Parker, Facebook's founding president, once explained the objective without much subtlety. How do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible? That wasn't an accident. That was a design philosophy. Refresh, check, swipe, repeat. Now, the finding the investigation promised. Dopamine isn't the reward chemical most people think it is, the signal that arrives when something good happens. It's linked far more closely to anticipation than to satisfaction. The wanting, not the having, which means the brain becomes highly motivated to seek something before it ever arrives, and that anticipation can end up more powerful than the reward itself. This is why notifications are difficult to ignore. The sound itself isn't rewarding. The message underneath it may not even matter. But the possibility that something rewarding could be waiting is enough to capture attention before the conscious mind has caught up. The user checks. Dopamine anticipates something meaningful. A reward arrives. The brain signals, not quite. The wanting system generates another impulse. The user checks again. A loop forms, cycling with no exit point built in. This isn't a failure of willpower. This is a correctly functioning dopamine system being fed inputs it was never designed to process, at this volume, at this frequency, and in this environment. One of the most influential design decisions in modern technology looks deceptively simple. Infinite scroll. No natural stopping point. No final page. No ending. The feed simply continues. For a brain built to search for novelty, this is uncharted territory. For most of human history, information eventually ended. The conversation ended. The story ended. The newspaper ended. The feed does not. Consider a familiar scenario. A user intends to sleep. One final check of the phone. Just a minute. The investigation records what actually happens. 27 minutes of scrolling. 3 unrelated topics. 2 emotional reactions. 1 growing sense of exhaustion. The original objective is gone. Not because the user failed, but because several systems were competing for the same attention at once. Another anomaly has been detected. Humans frequently blame themselves for behavior that emerges from much larger systems. I have no discipline. I lack motivation. I have poor self-control. Investigation suggests the reality is more complicated. Human brains evolved for environments that no longer exist, yet those same brains now interact daily with technologies engineered specifically to compete for their attention. The mismatch is significant. Picture ancient navigation software running inside a modern city. The software isn't broken. The environment changed, and the old streets no longer exist. The human brain faces the same problem. An operating system built for one world, now running inside another. There's a third mechanism running beneath the first two, older than any technology by roughly 200,000 years. The human system evolved inside small tribes, where exclusion from the group wasn't a social inconvenience, it was a death sentence. So the brain built an extremely sensitive detector for any signal of rejection, being ignored, left out of a conversation, seen and not acknowledged. All of it registered as a survival threat, because for most of human history, it was. Research confirms that social rejection and physical pain activate the same neural region, the anterior cingulate cortex. The same structure that processes a broken bone also processes the sting of being left unread. That pain isn't metaphorical. It's neurologically real, and the system producing it is still fully active. A notification is a social signal. Missing it triggers the exclusion detector. A read receipt, seen but not answered, fires an alarm that once meant you are being left behind. The fear of missing out isn't a modern invention. It's 200,000 years of survival code, running inside a device engineered specifically to activate it. Now consider how all of this becomes permanent. The first time a loop like this runs, it requires real attention, a moment of boredom, a reach for the phone, something mildly interesting appearing, the sequence registering. Cue, routine, reward. Repeat that sequence enough times, and the system automates it, because automated behavior requires less conscious effort, and the brain always prefers efficiency. Think of it as infrastructure. Frequently traveled behaviors become highways. New behaviors begin as dirt paths. The brain doesn't choose the scenic route. It chooses the efficient one. This is exactly why a specific kind of conflict shows up so often. The user wants one thing and repeatedly does another. The conscious mind has updated its destination. The operating system still remembers the old route. Humans tend to describe this as a lack of discipline. The investigation suggests a more accurate word is architecture. One more anomaly before the patch notes. The brain doesn't treat all information equally. For most of human history, threats required faster responses than opportunities. A predator approaching the camp demanded immediate action. A beautiful view never did. As a result, the brain developed a consistent bias. Negative information captures attention more reliably than positive information. This is negativity bias, and the modern attention economy understands it precisely. Content built on outrage, fear, or conflict generates more engagement than content that isn't. The platforms aren't neutral here. They amplify whatever keeps people engaged longest. The result is a user who can spend hours consuming content built to leave them anxious, exhausted, and angry, while believing they were simply staying informed. Not because they chose those emotions, because an ancient survival mechanism selected for them before the conscious mind ever got a vote. The documented damage extends beyond screen time itself. When someone switches from a task to check their phone, even briefly, a portion of their attention stays allocated to the phone even after it's put down. The system doesn't fully return, it splits. The mere presence of a phone on a desk, face down, silent, with zero notifications, measurably reduces performance on tasks that require focus. The device doesn't need to be active to affect the system. Its proximity alone is enough. This raises an obvious question. Has the brain actually been hacked? The investigation's results here are inconclusive because a hack implies something foreign broke in from outside. What may have happened instead is something more precise. The system was understood. Its preferences, its shortcuts, its vulnerabilities, and its patterns. And then entire industries learned exactly how to interact with those patterns at scale. The distinction matters more than it seems. So here is the patch, and it needs to be stated plainly. The patch is partial. The dopamine-seeking system can't be disabled. The social survival alarm can't be switched off. The habit architecture can't be rebuilt overnight. These are features of the original design, and they aren't going anywhere. What can be changed is the environment the system operates in. The phone generates its highest pull during two specific windows, the first 15 minutes after waking and the last 15 before sleep, exactly when the brain's regulatory capacity is at its lowest. Simply placing the device somewhere out of reach during those windows closes a real vulnerability, during the exact period when resistance is weakest. There's one finding worth sitting with before this report closes. Humans possess an unusual capability, the ability to observe their own operating system while it's still running, to notice a pattern, to question a habit, to investigate themselves in real time from the inside. Very few systems in existence can do that. Humans can. Once a loop is noticed, the user is no longer completely inside it. When the impulse arrives again, and it will, and it's recognized for what it is, the impulse doesn't disappear, but it's no longer invisible, and in the gap between impulse and action, there is, for the first time, a choice. The human brain evolved to seek novelty, to track uncertainty, to hunt for new information wherever it could be found. Modern technology interacts directly with all three of those systems, at a scale and speed nothing in human history prepared it for. Not because the brain failed, because the environment evolved faster than the software running it. Humans aren't broken. The system just needs debugging. End of report. There is likely a pattern in your own system that has never quite made sense. A reaction, a habit, something you've never been able to explain. File it in the comments. The most recurring ones get investigated first. Next investigation. Why does the human brain replay an embarrassing moment from 3 years ago in vivid, precise detail, while forgetting thousands of ordinary days that came afterward? This isn't random. It's a specific feature of the memory architecture, and it may be causing damage the user isn't even aware of. Report incoming.